All I'm saying is you gotta make money somehow, and it was their own fault for being in the ship and in the storm anyway, right? I mean, it's this way. Look, all we have out here is our wits, these storms, these ships, and the ability to make what looks like a fake lighthouse. How's that our fault? What do you want me to do? Say I'm sorry? You can't say sorry to the dead. Besides, all these awesome treasures I got from that ship. Look, they said we orchestrated it. What does that even mean? All I know is I'm getting paid. And look, I found this. It's not like they couldn't have looked and seen it wasn't a lighthouse.
What do you get when you take a really dark theme of people purposefully trying to wreck ships, and then the prisoner's dilemma as they try to divvy up the loot? You get the HMS Dolores.
In the HMS Dolores, players are going to be working to try to get sets of these different treasures from the shipwreck. Now, at the start of the game, you're going to be setting aside this Dawn card, which will be the card that's going to determine when the game is over. And then you're going to discard randomly 4 of these message cards from the game that won't be used. From there, you're going to shuffle all of the goods cards that are left, as well as the remaining messenger cards, and you're going to remove 15 cards from the deck and shuffle the Dawn card in with them. After that, those will be placed at the bottom of the deck, and you will deal cards out. Now, in a 2-player game, you're going to be passing out 4 cards to each player. 3 is 3 cards, and 4 players are 2 cards. These cards, when handed out, will immediately go face up into the player's personal area and arranged vertically, such as I have here, in 2 sets. The message cards are also placed in front of the player. Each game will consist of a series of sharing contests. And this is where 2 players at the table will compete in a way over who gets to take something. So if the 2 players were going at it, 4 cards would be dealt out. And this would be like an imaginary line between them. Now, this is where the actual game itself happens. Players will be playing almost a modified version of rock, paper, scissors, except in this case, we're going to call it peace, fight, and first pick. So when the 2 players are ready, they will do on a count of 1, 2, 3, or do, la, re, whatever works for them in terms of doing it. And then both players will place out their intended result, whether that be to negotiate peace, to start a fight, or first pick. And there will be results based on that as to what will happen. So in the end, there's these here at the back of the book, and there's a little bit better ones somewhere in this book. Right here. So in a nutshell, real quick, if both players selected to choose peace, then each player would take the two cards on their side of the deal. In the event of if one player chose fight while the other one chose peace, then the person who chose fight would take all 4 cards. If both players choose fight, however, all of these cards would be discarded. And then if a player chose first pick and the other player chose peace, he would get to take one of the 4 cards on the table, whether from his side or from his opponent's side, and the other player would then take the 1 or 2 cards left on his side of the table. If on the other hand, one player chose first pick while the other one chose fight, then the one who did first pick would immediately choose one of the 4 cards, and then the player who chose fight would take the remaining 3 cards. And then if both players choose first pick, all 4 cards are discarded, And then both players must simultaneously point to one set of goods they own and discard them. So these 4 would go, and then I would have to choose one of my other sets. Now, there is a bit of negotiating here, in that before you agree to start the 2 whatever you're going to do, you can discuss it with your opponent and maybe mutually agree on something. But you're not really held to that. Play will continue like this, with the first player negotiating with the second player, and then the second player negotiating with the third player with fourth with first, and etc., based on how many people are around the table. In addition, there are also message cards that players can acquire throughout the game that will do something special, such as this one here, which is called the Lookout. Now, this card actually has an effect on the game in terms of if the Dawn card is drawn, the player who has this, if they wish, may play it immediately to extend the game, so that it will go until there are just not enough cards in the deck to continue anymore. There are other ones in the game, such as this one here, which I believe is called the Wager. And this one, you allowed to do it during a sharing contest, opposing 2 other players, and you bet on their choices by extending 2 hands simultaneously, and you'll get a reward if you're correct on what they did. So that will add a bit of replayability to the game in itself as well. And the game will end when, as I said, when the Dawn card is drawn, and that is an immediate. The game is immediately over, unless, of course, the Lookout card is played in order to stop that. Otherwise, the game will immediately end. So final scoring. Now, final scoring is based on your sets, but it's also based on a high-low. At the end, each player will add up the values of each of their sets, but they will only get to score based on their highest total and their lowest total. So in the example I have here, currently, this gold has 5, and there is actually 6 value here, and nothing else is higher. So that 6 points will score. Then we have this one at 3 and these 2 at 2. Now, for the moment, I'm going to set this card aside, and so we would just have this one at 1, so the final score in this case would be 7 for this player. Now, in the event of a tie for anything, let's say that now we had this card, and these 2 are valued at 2, and they're tied for lowest. That means both of them will score. So the player would get the 6 points here and the 4 points here for a total of 7. In addition, a tie on the highest value. So if this was the case, these 2 both tie at 6, and so would both be scored for each. And so you would get 12 points. Then you would also get these, so now the player would have 16 points. In the event that all of your values, all of your goods that you have out there have the same value, you score everything, and you double your score. Player with the highest value wins the game. So real quick, I'm just going to run through a round or 2 between myself and a fictional character, just to give you an example. So I'm going to deal out the 4 cards. Now these 2 are to my opponent's side, and these 2 are to my side. And I'm going to use this little die that I created that has the results on it for my fictional player, and I'll choose mine. So in this case, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, peace. So I choose peace, and my opponent will now roll. And my opponent has chosen fight. In this instance, my opponent would take all 4 cards to themselves and place them in. Setting out those same 4 cards again, we will do another example. This time, I'm going to choose fight. So 1, 2, 3, fight, and then my opponent. Now my opponent has chosen first pick. And because they have chosen first pick and I have chosen fight, they immediately get to take one of these 4 cards. So we're going to say that they took this card, and I would get these 3 cards to myself. Now, one last time, we'll try this again, and we'll deal out those same 4 cards. All right. And this time, I'm going to select first pick. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, first pick, and then roll my opponent. And my opponent has also chosen first pick. So in this case, this means these 4 cards are all discarded, and in addition, we would each need to lose 1 complete set from our own personal loot.
Alright, so the HMS Dolores. First off, it's a pretty dark theme in this box. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. Obviously, the whole idea is you're not really good guys. You actually caused a ship to wreck so that you could loot it. And if you really dug deeper into some of the history on this, whether it be real or not, either way, it gets really dark. So the theme, I don't know that I care for the theme. Beyond that, let's just go into the game for a second. As shown in the overview, most of this game is really dependent on basically playing this weird version of rock, paper, scissors, but in this case, it's peace, fight, first pick. Now that's all well and good, and I'm fine with games using a rock, paper, scissors sort of mechanism, and so I have no problem there, but what bothers me is this feels really unfamiliar. And in fact, the first time I did it, I kept accidentally doing scissors, even though it's not part of the game, because my brain just kind of thought in that way. So I think there might be some problems there. But the biggest problem I have with this game is not the game. You really have to be careful about who you choose to play this game with. You could play this game with a mild group and maybe it's fun, people tease people a little. But if you played this game with the wrong people, where they're really antagonizing the two people currently doing the prisoner's dilemma, which is what this is really based off of, it can get angry really quick and people can get their feelings hurt. So I have a feeling that if you pick the wrong people, this game could be really not fun really fast. In addition, the game lists itself as 2 to 4 players. I don't see how this game could ever be fun with 2 players. It would get boring extremely fast, and it would lose a lot of the interaction that is both a pro and con for the game, in the fact that yes, the interactions can cause the game to lead to arguments, but it also is what makes the game fun at the same time. So I don't know in 2 players if this is even worth playing even once, to be honest. 4 players, great. I don't know why this game couldn't have handled more players. 5 players seems like it would be doable. It might be limited on number of cards. I haven't tried it, so I'm unsure there. But really, I think you're going to want to play this game with as many people as you can, even though there is some downtime in between your turns. I don't think that really messes with the game too much. Because when you are doing your first time, you're going to be involved probably in the next one, or you were just involved and things like that. So you're always going to be basically going twice. So there's no real issue with the downtime. I don't not recommend the game, but I also don't really highly recommend it either. I feel like there is definitely an audience for this game, given the 2 names on this. I believe Bruno Faidutti and Eric Lang both having quite a pedigree. This game was a bit of a surprise. It feels like it's a party game, but not a party game. And I'm just not sure where this game fits in a collection, to be honest. But I do think it has its place. It's not a poorly designed game by any stretch. I think that it's just that people, when they play it, aren't going to... Either they're going to really take to the nature of it, or they're going to really hate it. I'm not sure you're going to find a lot of people who this game goes into a gray area. I hope you guys have enjoyed this look at HMS Dolores, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode. Dolores? What a stupid name for a ship anyway.